Hi there, this is Dr. Matthew J. Traum. This is the first video of the third lecture in the engineering design course. Now, as I say at the beginning of every video, I tend to give lectures that themselves run longer than about 5 or 6 minutes, and knowing that people like to take breaks and like short videos to help keep their attention, I will actually stop recording after about 6 or 7 minutes, and that will be the first video. And then you guys can take a break and then come back and we'll pick up with the second video, and we'll do that in about 7-minute increments until we've completed this lecture. And as I mentioned, this is the third lecture in the engineering design course. Just to give you a quick recap of where we've been, we looked at in the first lecture the attributes of excellent designers, of people who are renowned for their design abilities, and we looked at what skills they possess and how they go about conducting the design process, so that we learn a little bit about how people who sort of have that natural skill set do it. And then in the second lecture, we talked about the non-hierarchical and non-linear nature of the engineering design process, and argued that even though the process itself is non-hierarchical and chaotic and non-linear, that there's still benefit to be gained by imposing upon that process some sort of structured step-by-step process. And so hopefully after that lecture, you guys are convinced that we do need some sort of formal engineering design process. The purpose now of this lecture then is to look at a couple of examples of formal engineering design processes. There's dozens, if not hundreds, of examples from various people that have suggested them. We're just going to look at a couple, and from there I'm going to introduce to you what the process is that we are going to use in this class. So let's get started. So first, just a presentation outline. So I'm first going to introduce the four design process stages, and then I'm going to give you two examples of formal engineering design processes. First is Jones design process structure, and the second is Archer's three-phase design model. Then I'm going to take from those two examples kind of a general discussion of the attributes of all model engineering design processes, so that we can see kind of what goes into all of the other processes that I'm not going to spend time talking about. And then with that as background, we're going to look again at the stepwise engineering design process. You've actually seen this before in lecture 1. It's the process that I'm going to teach you to use in this course, but I didn't spend a lot of time talking about it then. I'm going to talk about it a little bit more this time around. So that's where we're headed in this presentation. So the place where I want to start is with a description of a simple four-stage design process model. And the purpose of this slide is to show you that these design process models are essentially made up of stages, and each stage has a descriptor that explains what the designer is doing in that particular phase of the process. And those descriptor boxes are connected by a series of arrows that describe the pathway through the process. So if we look here, this four-stage design process model has, well, 4 stages: exploration, generation, evaluation, and communication. And then those 4 stages are connected by a series of arrows that start at the top and work their way through. So we have this arrow, which starts the process with exploration, this arrow which leads us from exploration to generation, this arrow which leads us from generation to evaluation, this arrow which takes us from evaluation to communication, and this arrow that takes us from communication out to the end of the process. Now, there is one unusual arrow that's included in this process model that I want to spend a little bit of time talking about, and it's this one here, the one that runs from evaluation back up to generation. Now, the reason that one is weird is because it appears to be going in the opposite direction, right? You go from generation to evaluation, following the normal procedure of a design process. But that arrow is there to simply remind us that engineering design is not a step-by-step process whereby once you've completed a prior step, you can move on to the next step without ever having to look back at the original process. Remember that as you go through the design process, you tend to learn more about the problem the more time you spend, and a lot of times you develop new understanding or uncover new information that will actually change the conclusions that you might have made in a previous step of the process. So that's what this arrow does, is remind us that we may have to go back to a previous step because we learned something in a later on step that fundamentally impacts the overall process. Now, what we will discover as we move through the various processes is that different people use the same words to represent different things. Now, this is pretty confusing. So let me explain what's meant by exploration, generation, evaluation, and communication in the context of this slide. So exploration is a study of the design space. So getting a customer need statement, getting the design requirements and specifications, and putting that all in order so that you have a sense of the problem that you're trying to solve. The next one is generation. So that's a brainstorming process. It's a generation of possible solutions to the design problem. Next is evaluation, which is to take those brainstormed solutions that you did in the generation process and evaluate them against the design specifications to down select the few that you're going to study in great detail. And then the final step is communication. And remember, the whole point of an engineering design process is to communicate to the person who's actually going to fabricate the artifact what it is that they need to fabricate to solve the problem. And so that's the communication step, is communicating the final design solution to someone who will actually build the artifact. All right, so this is Jones's design process structure, and I'm right at 7 minutes, so I'm going to take a pause here. This is the end of video 1, and we'll see you back in a few minutes to start up on this slide with video 2. Thanks. See you soon.